And this is the mistake I think a lot of people make, or maybe just me, and I'm trying to drag others into my mistakes too.
Welcome to Did I Do That? It's a podcast about graphic designers and the silly, awkward, downright embarrassing mistakes we make on the way to making just about anything, because it's all part of the process. I'm Sean Schumacher, and joining me today, a very special guest. She cut her teeth on both the mean streets of San Francisco and the passive-aggressive streets of Portland, doing work for the likes of Liquid Agency, Mattel, Portland Business Journal, and ThreadUp. She became the creative director of Willamette Week in 2017 before moving back to the Bay Area, and these days she serves as creative director of Wired, the most legendary voice in tech journalism out there, and whose offices in beautiful downtown San Francisco we are currently recording at right now. It's Alyssa Walker. Hi!
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you. I mean, really, it's you that is having me.
That's
because
true.
We've raided your offices. We've taken things over.
Yes.
You
found the plugs, learned how to turn things on into the Wi-Fi.
That is exactly. You stepped out of the room, and then I had like cables unplugged and rerouted into other things, and then I realized that none of that mattered, and the original thing that I tried actually had worked. But yeah, it's I feel so lucky to be sitting down here with you in San Francisco, and like actually
it's
getting
amazing.
It's so fun. So I'm down here in SF for a couple days. Although I did debate which is the most offensive possible name that I could come up with for San Francisco.
Frisco, hard stop.
See, yeah. I was wondering, is Frisco old-fashioned at this point? Has it started to come back around?
I think it's still on its way.
Yeah.
If it's coming back around, it hasn't arrived yet.
See, I wondered this because I always love to name my files about a trip after whatever that is.
Yeah.
This time I ended up naming the trip to this area Old Bay.
Old Bay, nice.
Which I realize has
We're
already
reclaiming
been,
it.
Yeah, take that. The Potomac? I don't really know. No.
Maybe they get to be Older Bay.
Yeah. Have you been to that incredible New York restaurant, Old Bay? BAE? It's so fancy, so high end. I think they poured chocolate over your hands. Anyway. But yeah, I just flew into SF yesterday, and boy, are my arms tired. And I was immediately reminded of two things. SF is a city of incredible culture. SF MoMA, City Lights Bookshop, the Letterform Archive, the statue of Tony Bennett, where his arms are stretched out as if he's saying, I'm pretty sure I left my heart around here. Has anybody seen it? Sort of red, wet, no? But none of those things was the institution that I felt compelled to visit on my first night here. And that gets sort of to the other thing that I was reminded of when I stepped into downtown. I am old.
Uh-oh.
I'm old now. Because I cannot tell you the amount of delight, awe, confusion that I experienced when I realized there was, plopped into a storefront right in the heart of San Francisco's downtown on Market Street, an IKEA.
Oh, yes. Our crown jewel.
It really is. I mean, it is the king of IKEA.
Yeah.
The IKEA Kungen, which I believe is also the name of one of their birch finish sideboards. I've never been in an IKEA like that.
Well, they're hoping it's the thing that saves San Francisco, so it better be nice.
Wait, so the city is actually betting the farm on IKEA as revitalization.
I don't know enough about city policy to say that's the thing, but I will say in years of not, well, and I feel like I need to back up here. I am such a San Francisco diehard. The city gets such a bad rap. I mean, as you know, living in Portland, it's a similar dialogue.
Oh, yeah.
But you can't deny, if you're a shopper, shopping in downtown San Francisco is not what it was. It's a pretty grim landscape of not an H&M to be seen.
No, if
no
you
Zara's.
for rent signs, there's a lot of those.
It's true. We got that market cornered, but it's been tough for lots of reasons, COVID, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. And so when they announced that an IKEA was coming into downtown, it was oh, we are back. This is it. And not only is the IKEA, a grand IKEA in its own right, but we also have this food smorgasbord.
That's the thing.
They're saying it's very Copenhagen, I guess.
Yeah.
Like,
it's that word for cozy that was going around on social media 5 years ago, and I don't remember what it is.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure there's 5 apartment buildings named after it between these two cities. The food court, that was the thing that really just got me. What a gorgeous space. But it's like the food court, the views, that things are not somehow like more expensive, that I could eat a veggie dog for 90 cents, though that price doesn't make sense anywhere.
Yeah. You don't want to pull that thread. You really don't want to know.
No, certainly not. And also, I don't want to inflict, on the listeners more of my talk of fast food prices, which was pretty much the entirety of the last 8 episodes. But like, it's such a wonderfully hypnotic experience to walk through that IKEA.
It is.
This like compressed IKEA. Like, you are not wasting any space. There's not any fancy displays.
No.
It's just products. And
products for very little apartments.
Really, truly, like, I have to think so. But like, still, I was like, walking through there, and I had to stop myself from buying towels and furniture because I have to fly them back. How am I going to do that?
The Portland IKEA is right next to the airport.
That's the other thing, is it truly would be sort of a double waste, because I'd just be paying $35 more when I could just wait 4 days and get it then. But yeah, like, it's also, there's a weirdly addictive quality. Like, I had such a hard time figuring out, like, well, where was I going to do my prep for this? Because I don't really have like a desk in my hotel room. And I was like, maybe I go back to the IKEA. They have a lovely little food court, and a nice view. And I just like, what is that? What is that weird? Because it's like something that's magical that's happening in that IKEA, and I don't understand it.
I mean, personally, I've never met an IKEA that wasn't magical. Like,
that's very fair.
The first time I went to an IKEA, I was in 5th grade, and I had like just kind of grown out of all my like hand-me-down bedroom stuff. My mom was gonna like buy me a new bedroom set, and like it was like I had landed in heaven. Just walking through, there was nothing like it. It was so incredible, and like everything was silver and made for a 10-year-old, and like that was my first experience. And like ever since, it just always seems like it meets you at the moment that you need IKEA to be.
Yeah, you want something? Oh, here's 20 of them. Yeah. And it's the only thing that you'll be able to see.
Yeah, totally.
Like that's such a magical experience as a kid, to be like, just endless possibilities are happening here. And for affordable prices. Wow. So this is the start of the season 6 bit IKEA sponsor me. No, just kidding. But yeah, if you want to give me a gift card or something, open. Yeah, sure, absolutely. I will happily shill for IKEA. But Alyssa, you probably didn't come here to talk about the downtown IKEA, I'm guessing. You came here to talk about your work and your sort of path into your career. Mm-hmm. And I was reading your bio. Actually, it's very funny because we both grew up around major tourist destinations. I grew up in Vegas.
Oh.
But you grew up like right outside of Disneyland.
Yeah, I did. And I will say it like really spoiled me. I mean, just in that, like, that's what I thought being a kid was.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I mean, back in the day, they used to have Southern California resident passes. And I may be getting this wrong, but I want to say it was like $100 for the year.
Whoa.
You couldn't go on weekends, and you like couldn't go during summer break. Like anytime somebody else would want to go to Disneyland, you couldn't. But it was awesome. Like, And to make this even better, my mom was a first grade teacher. Her room's theme was Disneyland. Like, I just thought like Disneyland was a childhood, like through and through. So we would just go after school, go for dinner, go on a ride, and then go home. Like the most lax Disneyland experience ever. And then in some ways it like got a little less special, of course, because it was like, oh yeah, we go to Disneyland on Tuesdays.
Yeah. They're working on that. We'll have to come back next week.
Yeah.
Like, I do want to back up a little bit. Your mom's room was themed after Disney. Like, what did that look like?
It looks like a Disney store. I
Wow.
mean, she's still a first grade teacher, and like she's thinking of retiring in the next few years. And like the Vulture other teachers are already like, hey, can I have that? What are you going to do with that? Can I have those?
Yeah.
Like, because at this point, like her collection is almost 40 years deep. And like, it's like Mickey Mouse miniature plush chairs and like
this is actual like furniture too.
Furniture, wall coverings, toys, books.
My God.
Hats. Like it's really excessive, but amazing. Like if you're a first grader, like that is like going to Disneyland.
I can I tell you, like that would certainly make me want to go to first grade every day.
Totally.
Like,
yeah.
I want to sit in the Mickey chair. All I have to do is finish this addition? I don't know. Whatever easy thing that first graders are doing.
But like that is part of it, you know, that light manipulation. Like everything has a price.
Yeah.
Like you do sort of like earn your right to play with certain stuff.
Yeah.
And like she's got it down. Like she's got that class under control because they want the goods.
Oh, how could you not? How could you not? Does she also have, I mean, weirdly, my mom was also an elementary school teacher back in the day. And like the number of things that she made out of just like butcher paper and like the homebrew stuff that is just like so weirdly beautiful.
It's incredible. Like, and even just like, I don't know, like my partner is also a teacher. But like if he were to cut something, it would look like a human cut it. And if she were to cut something, it would look like you bought it at the store like that. Like just...
Oh, she's got the like laser cutter precision, basically.
Laser cutter precision, perfect handwriting.
Yeah.
Like everyone asks her to wrap their presents. Like just anything in that realm. Like they're better at it.
Yeah.
The elementary school teachers specifically, like they're just built different.
They're built to be essentially art directors in their own Wes Anderson films.
Truly. I've never thought about it like that, but it really does check out. Yeah.
So that's an incredible thing to like grow up around in all the different ways.
Yeah. I mean, really, at the time, I could never have known where that like exposure to things like that would have taken me. But now it's like impossible not to think about that just being like a very like open realm of creativity. I mean, there's probably a better way to say that, but I just feel like from a young age, that's been what the upbringing was, like this whimsical, creative, fun.
Growing up around art, you know.
Growing up around art and, you know, I had a very creative family in general. And so it was pretty inevitable to end up in this realm. And obviously I was also very lucky then that my family was so supportive because like that's not, you know, when you tell your parents you're going to go to art school, like not everyone's thrilled.
Yeah. So like, what was that decision? Like when did you kind of know that was a path that you like were sure about?
So I was actually pretty lost. I mean, and I hate to say like lost because I was 14. Like it's still absurd to me that
you're a 14-year-old that is really confident about what you're going to do, I have terrible news for you.
Truly. But you know, you feel that way sometimes, like bopping around high school being like, I don't fucking know. Like, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
And so I was really lucky also in that my public high school had a lot of art programs. And so in public high school, I took graphic design class and learned CS1.
Really? Wow.
And like game changer, like just huge. And I loved it. Like I loved the graphic design courses. I loved my illustration courses. I honestly wasn't that good at other school. Like not terrible, but like very solid CB student, like really wasn't motivated by math and English and a lot of the core subjects. And so I was a bit like, well, where am I going to go? And I think having that aha moment with graphic design just made it clear, like, okay, this is my realm. This is my avenue. And at that point, I was exploring things that were pretty local, possibly community college. And it was actually a trip to San Francisco with my family and seeing the Academy of Art. Like, if you spend any time here, you'll see that like plastered everywhere if you haven't already.
Can I tell you the weirdest thing that I'm staying in basically the Union Square neighborhood, and I think I'm on the block of like Academy of Art dorms or something.
Yep. Yep. If you think you are, you are.
Yeah. They sure look dormy, and there's a weird restaurant downstairs that seems to be the cafeteria.
Yes. Yeah. I spent many years on that street. Yeah.
Yeah. None of that was intentional.
That was just prep for your interview with me. Exactly. You're putting yourself in my shoes. Imagine, however many years ago
it's kismet.
Totally. Totally. I mean, but it really was. Like, I think I was on a cable car and like looked over and saw that and was like, oh, I'm going to check that out. Yeah. And did a tour, really connected with it, and was very lucky that my parents were like, sure, let's take out the student loans. Let's do it. And luckily I didn't live to regret it yet, but
I love the bet hedging that's happening there.
I like to manage expectations.
Even at your level, there's a certain amount of uncertainty. Was it the right? If you're a student out there, no, it doesn't ever leave you. No, never. You'll never be free of it. But yeah, so like you're like into graphic design. You're actually like at Academy of Art now. Like, what do they have you doing? What are you interested in?
I mean, it was a great school. I mean, but I think a lot of design students can probably relate to this. Very critique based, critique heavy. And as we talked about a little bit before we started, like very competitive, you're only as good as your last project. If you're not at the top of the class, you're at the bottom of the class. Like, these are the people you will be competing against for jobs. And I came up right after the 2008-2009 recession. So I remember one of my first courses, like the teacher just being like, there are no jobs.
Welcome to the field.
Yeah, truly. It's like, well, let's hope we all get it together in the next 4 years, because I'm going to have to do something.
Bad news.
But that really was like, there was a bit of a freedom in it, because in my mind, it's like, well, if there's no jobs, I might as well like have a good time and like try my best and do some weird stuff. And
well, that's interesting to think about. Yeah, like it is such a permission giver to be able to be like, if I find the right person, it's going to be because of me, rather than like, trying to look and feel like exactly everybody else that's coming out of here. Yeah,
absolutely. And we started very hands-on. Like, you weren't allowed to use a computer for like the first 6 months.
Wow.
Like, it was a lot of handwork. It was a lot of learning to do typography, learning to do stencils. And I don't know if that's still the case now. I know for many years after, they still really instilled those hand skills, which I'm super fortunate for. But then by the time we got into typography and packaging classes, it was like, oh my God, we have all these tools. We can do anything. And I really fell into packaging for a long time. I loved it. I loved the physicality. I loved this thing is in your life. I loved like making the design systems around products. It was really wonderful. And I thought that was what I was going to do. Like, that really was sort of the path that I was feeling passionate about when I was in school. And I did love editorial and like book projects as well, but it felt a little less world building to me at the time. Like, I liked the systems a lot.
But that's such an interesting thing to think about, like what we were talking about with IKEA too, because I think a weird amount of like, it's not packaging with them, but it is like environment as packaging, like the vibe of the space is what the packaging is. And like, I think in a lot of ways, like that's an incredible thing to be thinking about, like in terms of the trajectory you go on. Like,
absolutely.
You're building this environment with a package, and then, working in magazines, you get to extend that out and like.
Yeah. I mean, we'll get to that, I'm sure. But like, especially what Wired is today, like one thing that stands out to me in the last year that I heard was, I was lucky to go to D&AD in London this last spring. Yeah. Super cool. And I was listening to a talk that was done by the CEOs of Collins, and they were just walking through how they've essentially reinvented their process. And I imagine most people are familiar with Collins.
Oh,
but
yeah,
if you
yeah.
don't, like, just really top of their game design, like, so aspirational. And so they were walking through how they approach projects and how they especially approach like these big brands that come to them and want them to work on something. And like, it's not a branding project, it's a brand world project in their eyes. Yeah. I'm like so not saying this all articulately.
Well, then you're in the right place.
Yeah. But they just made it seem like, yeah, when you do this thing, it's not just about the thing. It's about like the ecosystem around the things.
Yes.
And it really was that like, yeah, that's always been the connection. Like that's always been what like as a designer you're striving for. It's like this bigger world that you're creating. And
yeah, it becomes such a like an onion if you let it. Like it's great. Yeah, so like you're interested in packaging design, like you're working your way through. I did come across what I believe to be your senior portfolio.
Oh my God.
I did want to.
I'm scared.
So I'm going, good God, Cookie Bot. What the hell are you? Use necessary cookies only. Is this it?
Oh my God.
Does this look familiar to you?
It is. Yes.
So this was up on Issue, circa 2013. And it seems like it's your senior portfolio because it does say there's some like credits at the end.
Yes, that was my like portfolio class final project in school.
Yeah. And I was noticing too, like this is like a printed book, like a blurb book.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's thick. I still have two of them. Mm-hmm.
So, like, do you remember any of this work? Is this like?
Do I remember? No, none
is any
of
of this
it.
work still actively traumatizing you? Oh wait, no, it went away. There
no,
it is.
I have not repressed any of this work. I do remember.
What the other thing that I was noticing as I was going through this is really good work. Like this World Market logo. I assume this is the World Market that's also Cost Plus.
Yes.
Which God only knows why that's still part of the name. Because I've been there and cost is not really something that they're thinking about anymore. But yeah, there's a ton of like beautiful editorial work. And it's so interesting to also think of like, you're actually more interested in packaging, but there's not as much packaging in here as there is like layouts and spreads. So yeah, like you're kind of in the process of graduating. What do you do? Like you're stepping into still probably a fairly uncertain job market in 2013.
Yeah. So actually it's a funny story. I think it was mid-senior year. It was like right before my last semester would have started. And Mattel had come to our school.
Oh.
And they basically were saying like, we're looking for interns for the summer. You have to still be in school. But they had this really killer intern program. And Mattel is based in Southern California, not too far from where my folks live. And at this point, I want to be a package designer.
Yeah.
So I kind of like mess up my whole schedule, drop my 2 final classes and say like, I'm going to extend and stay another semester so I can qualify for this internship.
Wow.
Which was very presumptuous because I hadn't gotten the internship at that point.
Like, did you know that was there competition? Like, was this going to other schools too?
Yeah. Oh, I think I was one of 2 people from my school that went.
Wow.
And I don't know if Mattel still does this program, but they had like 200 interns. It was really extensive.
200 interns.
It was like across every toy vertical, and then it was also like legal, business, like I mean truly
some of those are a little bit more fun than the others.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Congratulations, you qualified for the internship. Oh, you're gonna be with HR. We're gonna need you to design some forms. Let's not make them too interesting.
I mean, if you wanted to be in HR though, can you think of a better place?
You know what? I bet
HR?
that's actually pretty fun.
Yeah. I feel like of any category, it's like you're gonna be a litigation lawyer, but you get to do it for Barbie.
Yeah.
Like,
we're going to need some more Barbie fluorescent pink contracts for people to sign.
Well, and it wasn't just design and like our interns, I should say. It was like across all the different categories. But yeah, so this came up. I was just like, this has to happen. Yeah. I'm not going to graduate this semester. I'm going to push it so I can go. I put together a portfolio, get accepted into the program, which like truly a miracle, because there was a lot of really good competition, and like I didn't consider myself at the top of my class. Like I thought I was really good, but there were just some people that were like the stars.
Yeah.
And I never saw myself on that end of things. And so yeah, I got the internship. I was on the Hot Wheels team.
You were on the Hot Wheels team?
Yes.
Whoa.
Dream come true. Like
God.
truly. And like
Those are some fun aesthetics to play with.
and they had just done a big rebrand. And so a big part of what I was doing was they were like basically updating all their packaging to be the new brand style. It was so fun. Like, and the environment at Mattel, like it's exactly what you would think. Like they had foosballs with Barbies. They had just like buckets full of mutant toys that people had made. There was like
Sid from Toy Story?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean,
I guess that's how you make new toys, kind
Mattel
of.
don't come for me now, but like I'd like try to like swipe these like really ridiculous looking ones and like give them to my friends as like gifts. It was really fun and just such an encouraging environment. I was the only, well, there was one other woman who was a creative director, and then there was me, and then it was like 15 dudes.
Ooh.
And like you saw my portfolio.
Yeah.
Like my aesthetics, especially at that time, were not like bro-y. Like I was not.
No, I would not say so.
Yeah, pretty feminine,
Yeah.
lots of really light typography, lots of like pretty frou-frou things. And so it's kind of hilarious in retrospect that I ended up on the Hot Wheels team, but I mean, it was the greatest group of people. And I think to this day, like, still follow a lot of them on Instagram and Facebook and stuff, like just really an encouraging group. And at one point, one of them came to me and he's like, "You're a real designer. Like, please don't do this." Like,
wow.
yeah.
Wow.
And I will say, like, all to say, like at that point, I thought I really wanted to be a package designer. But what that job ended up becoming was a lot of manipulating children. Like that's what it is. You sit in a room and somebody says we need to make this starburst bigger, and then you do that and and like
you got to get these children hungrier for tiny dangerous cars. Yeah. Exactly the size of being able to be swallowed.
Exactly. And yeah, I think it just like I imagine a lot of designers go through this at some point where like the bubble bursts a little bit. And I realized after that, like, I don't know if I actually want to be a package designer. Like, and we had to come up with a project. And even in 2000, I think this was 2012 or 2013, my project was how Mattel was going to become more like eco-friendly and green. And the engineer for the packages at that time like laughed, and he's like, "That's not something we're doing."
Cool.
Like, yeah.
That's a great vibe. Cool.
It's like, "Oh, well, it's a fictitious project." He's like, "Oh." Oh, good. Oh, good. Yeah. So it was, I wouldn't, yeah. I just, I kind of walked away from that really happy I did it. But then I went into my senior portfolio class and like my last classes and was a little bit like, well, shit, what do I do now? And at that point, for my last two classes, my college roommate and I had moved to Portland. Because side note, like we had finished up our time in San Francisco, couldn't afford the rent. Like this is right at the height of the initial big tech boom. And neither of us had been to Portland. We were just thinking like, what's the cheapest West Coast city? Okay, that's where we'll go.
A lot of people had that idea, it turned out.
Yeah. I mean, rent was like $500. It was great.
Those were the good days.
It was the time.
I've never actually shared this before. My first year after I graduated grad school, I lived off of $12,000 a year, and I was very comfortable. That was how cheap it was there.
Yeah.
Ooh.
What a time.
What a time.
What a time. R.I.P.
Yeah.
But yeah, so all these things were sort of happening. I'd moved out of my apartment in June, did the internship in the summer, was living at my parents' house, was moving to Portland in August, had saved all the money I'd made from the Mattel internship because they paid really well, which was also awesome.
Hey.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that. Really really set me up to move to Portland and not be in a huge rush, which was great. But I did move and just had this like, what the fuck am I going to do?
Yeah.
My dream, like, don't want to do that. Need to finish school. Need to put this together. And it took a few months, but I actually ended up at a newspaper, the Portland Business Journal, shout out, really good publication in town.
Been around for a long time.
Long time. And like, I mean, I think they get a lot of love, but I think no matter how much love they're getting, they're so underrated.
Yeah.
Like those people all do such hard work, and it's still to this day, like mainly the same crew that was there when I was there, which is a great sign. Yeah, just fell into news, really just got the job, was applying to everything at that time.
Oh, sure.
And they were the ones that hired me,
Yeah.
very happenstance.
But not even an intentional pivot into
No.
The other thing that I have is layout experience. Maybe I can find.
No, nothing conscious.
Interesting.
I was just on Craigslist, anything design.
Yeah.
Just in that mode of I just need to pay rent.
Yeah.
At a certain point.
I'll apply for this graphic design this is the weird thing about laying out circuit boards. No, not that one.
It's well, maybe.
Yeah. Hey, circuit board guys, come up with a different name for that job. It's really confusing to everybody.
Too many graphic designers are getting hurt.
Yeah.
It's becoming an epidemic.
I think with them, I will say I think it's graphics designer, which is itself very weird. It just sounds like a typo. But yeah, so you're at Portland Business Journal. You're starting in layout, and you're starting in a thing that has a quick turnaround.
Yeah, it was a weekly print product.
Whoa.
It was just myself and the creative director, and then we had a production designer, but he predominantly just helped with ads. So it was a lot.
Yeah.
I mean,
and you're trying to finish up school at the same time.
yeah, I was doing my classes at night, putting the portfolio together. It
Wow.
was, yeah. And I think a lot of designers find themselves in that special place of hell. I think
It's
that
creative
is,
work. How hard can it be?
Yeah. I'll just do it.
Yeah.
I'll just do it and I won't sleep.
No.
And it'll be fine.
It works for Saturday Night Live. Why can't it work here? Yeah, that's a lot to be taking on. The kind of deadlines that you have to do to get a newspaper out.
Yeah.
That's hard.
It was crazy. I mean, it was truly crazy. And I only think it was better because it was my first job.
Yeah.
I think there's that young naivety that really just it's, you just got to do it.
Yeah.
You don't know any better. We didn't unionize back then.
You had no idea what you were getting into.
And I mean, all things considered, that was a very well-oiled machine. I've had plenty of painful deadline nights since,
Yeah.
and I don't think Portland Business Journal were the worst of them. But yeah, it was, I truly just fell into it, and it was a dream. I loved it. I loved the pace. I loved the connection to the city, and being new to Portland, it was just such an education.
Because they cover a lot of stuff that you wouldn't hear about in other places too. So that's such an interesting lens to get to know a new place through too. At what point do you decide to kind of move on though?
So that, and I think a lot of people make this mistake too. I was there for about a year. And I was starting to get that feeling I think I've really done everything I'm going to do here. My role was very junior. It was creative, but not so much so.
Yeah.
And then...
Well, and you have the problem, which is kind of the other side of the coin of the team is very stable, which is the team is very stable. So there's not really places to go that are up.
Yeah. And at that point, there's a designer and there's a creative director.
Yeah.
I'm not on that trajectory, so...
Yeah, they're not going to put out 2 editions every day of Portland Business Journal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so it felt like it was time to leave. And then I got a call from Liquid Agency, and they were looking for a senior designer. And this is the mistake I think a lot of people make, or maybe just me, and I'm trying to drag others into my mistakes too. I realize I keep saying this, and it's really just projecting. I think everybody makes these mistakes, and it's not just something I do.
I suspect they're quite common mistakes.
Yeah, so they reach out to me about this job to be a senior designer, and my ego is through the roof. I'm 1 year out of school.
Oh, so this is an actual recruitment.
Yeah, this is a recruiter for Liquid. And yeah, my ego's huge. I can do this job. Yes, you're so lucky to have me. I bring in my little book They're like, ooh, a book. And I was like, yeah, I made a book. And I get the job and like start at Liquid, and it's like an absolute train wreck. I am so not qualified.
Oh, no, because it is a senior designer that they're looking for.
They're looking for a senior designer. And this has happened a few times in my career, but I start and then like 2 weeks later, there's layoffs.
Yeah.
And they get rid of the actual senior designer.
Oh, good.
So they had like 2 senior designers, me being one of them. And they get rid of the really... the really experienced, talented man, and
the one with knowledge about how the job should work. Yeah.
And they keep me, the woman who at this point doesn't know what paragraph styles are.
Well, the other thing that occurs to me too is like you've been working in like this fast-paced, fast turnaround environment. Like probably they're wanting also slower work, and your brain, like I've had this too, where your brain just can't adjust back down to like, no, I can't go that slow anymore.
Oh, yeah. I mean, projects would take 6 months.
Yeah.
And like, I was used to having an hour. Like, it was a different pace. And yeah, I mean, like, to be honest, like, it was a mess.
Well,
like
the name suggests it.
Yeah, truly. They, and this wasn't like anyone's fault at the time, but there was a creative director and an art director that were like scheming to start their own company.
Oh, sure. The classic agency move.
Classic agency move. This was all happening. Like, I frankly was just very bad at the job. They were having a hard time getting clients at the time. Like, it just wasn't a great environment. And at one point, the 2 projects I was working on, one was making a website for fracking.
Oh, boy.
And the
wow.
And the other was helping Walmart create their benefits packet, which, like, you can imagine what those calls sounded like. So
why did they need an outside agency to do that? Surely Walmart must have people that can resolve that for them.
I mean, you would hope so, because I was not doing a good job at it. This is when I learned what paragraph styles were. And so if you imagine, like, I'm putting together this brochure and like none of it's right.
Yeah.
Like, it's all just like a mess, and like everything's the wrong size, and it was embarrassing. And like, yeah, it just it was rough. It was rough. And like, shout out to my creative director at the time, because she actually had not been the one to hire me. She was on maternity leave and then came back and sort of inherited me, as well as this like larger mess. And she day one was just like, you are not a senior designer.
Oh, no.
It's like, no, I am not.
God.
And
to be in her shoes and to be like, I'm back. Oh, God, everything's on fire.
Yeah. Oh, and like through it all, I truly just felt bad for her, because like I knew was self-aware enough to know like I was not doing the job right. And she tried. Like, I think she really tried to like make the best of it, but I think they were just in such a place at the time that they needed people that could do it. And so I did not last there long. They actually, really funny story about them firing me. So I think they... they like took me back to like the conference room, and there were 2 entrances to the building, and they felt really bad about letting me go. And like, it was actually my creative director's birthday that day, and she said like, I can't believe we have to do this on my birthday. I was like, yeah, I'm sorry. But then after that had all been communicated, they were like, if you want, I know this is really tough, like you can just leave out this door and then you can come back like later or this weekend and get your stuff. And I had brought in my dog to work that day.
Oh, no.
So I was like, well, I think I'm going to have to go back to my desk because my dog's here.
Yeah.
And so then it just became a very sad, like, parade of, like, getting my stuff and taking my dog and leaving. And literally, we're walking out with them.
Come on. I know you want pets, but
yeah,
not time,
not time. Both of us literally with our tail between our legs.
Oh, God.
Yeah. I mean,
wow.
But even in that...
That's brutal.
It was, but even in that moment, I hated that job. And I knew it was like time to not. And so Was it, ideal? Absolutely not. But was it the best thing? Like, of course. Like, even in that moment, I was kind of like, oh, thank God I don't have to work here.
Yeah.
Like, this is awful.
You're free.
I'm free. We're gallivanting. We're going to figure it out. But just tragic, though. Like, from start to finish, it was just like, oh, shit. This sucks.
Those kinds of rolling disasters, like, they do such a good job of shaping everything that comes after. And I think it is so interesting that essentially where you go after that is the thing that like leads you to here.
Yeah.
So like after that, you started Willamette Week.
Yeah, I did. I freelanced for a bit in between and did like, I think the mandatory stint at Nike doing like some freelancing. Yeah. Which I think.
A Beaverton shoe company, of course.
Famously.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was kind of nice too, to like have that in between. Because I think that also reinforced like, oh, I am not corporate in that sense.
It's a very unique kind of corporate, though.
Yeah. I remember everybody was just constantly talking about the half marathons they had done the weekend before.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That is the other. Yeah, it is such a culture of athleticism that I could not ever meet.
Yeah,
no.
Aspirational, sure, but like not.
No, I'll walk around. You guys make shoes for that?
Yeah.
No, not really. Okay, sure.
Well.
Yeah, but that's informative at the very least.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was, and I think it was like nice just to know. For all intents and purposes, I felt like my experience at Liquid, like I failed, and I'm fine with that. But like it's tough. Like that's an ego killer. Like it really shakes your confidence for the next thing you do. And I think it was just nice to know like, okay, like I can fail and then go spend some time at Nike and like recalibrate.
Yeah.
And I think had I gone right into another full-time job, it just would have been like too soon, too rocky, like not enough perspective.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Well, and like it is still so recent that you've graduated too.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, less than 2 years at that point. So,
getting the feel of what the big places could be like, that's pretty important,
Yeah. Yeah. And just like the scale of it all. Like really it's in some ways nice because you realize how small you are.
Yeah. Truly, I'm not a cog in the machine. I'm a, sort of a rubber gasket in a machine. That's,
just my wee little place.
Yeah. part of the ENIAC. I'm just one little vacuum tube. But like how do you end up working on special sections for Willamette Week?
I mean, to be honest, kind of by force.
Oh, like, really?
Yeah. They had an opening for an art director for the weekly. And I applied and I was so relentless because I was just thinking like, Portland's small. Like, what are the chances I'm going to get the ability to get back into news? Like, this is so rare. And most people in those positions had stayed forever. And so it really felt like a moment like, I need to make this happen. And I got really far in the interview process. I felt really confident. I was emailing like daily, just like, so when am I going to hear something?
Hey.
When am I going to hear something? Shaking down the tree.
Keep that inbox warm.
Yeah,
oh, yeah,
exactly.
There you go.
And I didn't get that job. And then they had the second job open. And I think because I had just been like so relentless, he basically was like, well, do you want this one? And that was for the magazines, which at that point was like, wait, I get to have bigger budgets, work less frequently. And still do the thing that I've always wanted to do.
And
like
really get a lot of variety, too, because all of them look different. Like,
yeah, everyone looked different. It was a different, like, corner of Portland culture. So at the time, they had a restaurant guide, a weed guide, an outdoor guide, beer, bars, cheap eats, like a lot of just, like, cool, fun things that you want to do around town.
I didn't realize how many they used to have.
That sounds right, almost monthly. And then they had like one big catch-all, which was called Finder, which was just like the guide to the city. So it was great. Like I came in and really just got to like do my own thing. And even then, like I don't know, I was in my like very early 20s still, and my job was just to like go around with photographers, and like the budgets were like $50, but we'd get to like eat and drink for free. It was atrocious. Like, I mean, we really made it work, but yeah, the budgets were non-existent. And yeah, we just like got to have a lot of fun, like playing around in the city and making these really cool compilations of what culture was then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At really like the height of,
Yeah.
kind of the tourist identity of Portland, at least.
Totally. I mean, going back, like I'll always try to pick up what those look like now. And I mean, they still look great, but it really does just feel like Portland, and like what it was then is not the same thing.
No. It's a very different city, but like also that kind of did help to shape like what people's perceptions of it at the time were. And
Yeah.
like the two things like fed into each other. So like you're doing that for a couple of years.
Yeah, I did the special sections for a few years, worked closely with Julie Showers, who was the art director, and just like such a creative genius. Like she also was just endlessly resourceful, so funny. Like we had so much fun. And that is probably the job where the hours were the most insane. Like,
Oh, sure.
it was, 11 p.m., midnight, 1 a.m. deadlines every Monday, just nonstop. Like we'd get one day a week where it was like maybe chill, and then you were sort of back in the flow of it all. But we had so much fun, and we both would bring our dogs in and play music and laugh, and we'd have the interns and like the designers and everyone, and the culture desk would have like a brewery drop off beer, and it was just like exactly what you would think working at an alt weekly would be. And it's amazing because our era and our class of like who all was there, like everyone has really gone on to do amazing things and like go to different publications around the country and write books and do these really wonderful artistic pursuits. And to think we got this era where we were all just like making a thing that, was highly controversial at times. It was so special.
Are you talking specifically about the new things to love in Portland issue that they would do every year that I feel like I would always hear people grumbling about?
Oh, I mean, there was that. I mean, we'd always have somebody like protesting outside of our building, like
really?
mad about something we wrote. Yeah, we were our editors were not afraid to ruffle some feathers.
How dare you like pizza? I hate pizza. Yeah, that's pretty wild to think about. Like, I think there is something to be said, though, of like those kinds of fast-paced jobs. You have to iterate quickly, and like that,
Yeah.
I think kind of makes you a more disciplined designer in a lot of ways, too.
I think so too. And I'm so torn, and I'm curious what your thoughts are, because I feel like I have had a career where like the name of the game is like you put in the long hours and you like stretch really thin and you go to those depths, and then that's where the creativity is.
Uh-huh.
And like every time I've done that, I always feel like I come out the other end with something I'm really proud of. And I think there's a certain level of designing that you just like can't get there without like doing some serious damage to your well-being. And I believe that with my whole heart. Like, it is not healthy, but I think like that is somewhat necessary.
Oh, it's so interesting. It's so interesting because I think there was a point in my life where I was exactly that mindset, where like the only difference between like me succeeding and me failing is just putting in the hours. And like, if I do it, then it's going to be this thing that I'm like, oh, wow, this is really cool. And, people will like it. And then at some point, I got really old really fast. And I think it was from doing too much of that.
Yeah.
Like it's like I have so many sweaters that I, have worn through the elbows on. God help me, I hope I get tenure soon so I can actually buy some leather elbow patches for these poor sweaters. But I think it's weirdly a little bit like that, where at some point it's great and it's all so flexible. My elbows, the sweaters, everything's working good. Expert bends every time. And then at some point, the threadbareness starts to seep in. And then, oh no.
Yeah.
The elbow went all the way through. And the arm was on its way to going through. And I occasionally, it took me a long time to sort of get out of that and get myself back into like a little bit of balance. But I have really had, especially in since the pandemic started, like a lot more reservations about like, I have increasingly found like if I push myself too hard on a thing, then I won't like the end result. And so I don't know what changed exactly, but like there's not the magic that I can pull out of it anymore.
Maybe there is just something about finding your voice, and like through finding your voice, like that push can help. But I think what I struggle with now is like I manage a team and I don't want them to do that.
No.
Like I wouldn't wish that on somebody, and that wouldn't be the expectation. It's like, even though I still find myself in that, like, okay, I'm in grind mode. Like,
yeah,
if I see somebody doing that, like, I'm concerned. I want to find another way.
Yeah.
And I imagine, like, with your students, like, it's that same feeling of, like, even though that's truly, like, I really feel conflicted because I truly feel like that's how I found my voice.
Yeah.
And that's how I found it. And I don't know if I could have done it differently personally, but I don't want that to necessarily be how others have to find their voice.
Yeah, it's so tricky because I think you're right. It's a very personal thing, and like you don't want it to feel institutional. And I like occasionally in teaching, I do have to be like, okay, you do maybe need to stop because I can see that you're not getting to the place that you need. Yeah, your elbow is also going through the sweater, and you're not even on track to get an elbow patch. Yeah, it's tough, but like, I think you do have to do at least some of it when you're starting out to be able to just like know what you can do. Cause I don't know that you can do certain things without pressure. And that's the thing that maybe is the difference there. Like,
Yeah.
You know, it's like getting to that apex place that's like tough.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think especially when there are editors, project managers, you know, whatever your organization structure is, and there's these people that want things from you, and the designer is always somehow the person that has to like figure it all out.
Oh, look at this big pile of problems that's been dumped on my desk. Oh boy.
Well, and just the timelines of it too. Like, oh, we had this done and now it needs to be redone by tomorrow. Like those things I feel like somebody earlier in their career gets hit with, maybe more so than folks further down. But
we all want it to be just as elaborate though. Yeah. And you can't reuse any of it.
And if you don't do it, you're fired. So have fun.
You creatives.
Yeah.
Always
chill. So chill.
Just like Party Central every time I walk over here.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to leave this bomb right here. Bye.
I've had a lot of colleagues in my life who have said, instead of resting bitch face, I have resting smile face. And I think I think I'm just broken.
Well, I think what you've uncovered is the awkward truth of this field, which is that we're actually, you know, kind of we're basically in customer service jobs, and you know, you put on a smile, and you know, if you got time to lean, you got time to clean. So you know,
customer's always right. That's what I love to say.
You know, it's like, to go back to Disneyland. It's very, you know, there is an aspect of that kind of like everything's great, everything's great. We love
happiest place on earth.
So happy, it hurts. Yeah, it's that is the funniest thing. I don't even remember where we were. So you're really cutting your teeth at Willamette Week, working on these feature sections.
Yeah.
How do you end up in the creative director role there?
I mean, honestly, the simple answer is that the creative director had left. And
that helps. Yeah.
But I will say, like, somewhat transparently, like, she left because it had been, like, not a great environment.
Oh.
I mean, I feel like we've referenced SNL a few times, but it was kind of that thing where pressure was on. You know, media's always been like a a business where your years are made by dollars and everything counts. And there were personalities that were like not great to get. Like it was just a really tough environment. And they were sort of just looking to me at that point to just do the job. They were like, oh, so you're going to do it.
Oh, not even just presenting it to you as inevitable, essentially.
That's how I remember it.
Interesting.
Maybe there might have been more of a conversation, but I remember it. And it wasn't even that I didn't want to. Like, I was very excited for that responsibility. But when you watch your friends sort of get beat up by this crazy place and like, the pressure and stuff, like you're not necessarily stoked to like step into those shoes. So it was a really challenging time. I mean, I was lucky that the editor-in-chief and my boss at the time, like, I did come to him and said, like, listen, I want to do this. I love this place, but like there's certain things that just need to be different and like need to be structured differently. And I think luckily at that point they were kind of in a bind, so they had to do it. But I was able to structure the team in a new way, bring on a designer who is both of the designers on my team were actually PSU alum, Rosie and Trisha. And
Rosie and Trisha.
Wait, do you know Rosie
I do.
and Trisha? Oh,
I
my
do,
God.
in fact. Both of them are previously my students.
Really?
Yes.
Truly two of my favorite people. Like, we had a great thing going. Like, it was such a dream, and I feel like the three of us collaborated so well. Everyone had such different strengths, and like them both, like just like hilarious, fun, nice, like smart designers, like
absolute rock stars, and able to churn things out fast, which,
most importantly,
very useful in that environment.
But that was another one of those setups where, like, because we all really enjoyed working together and like had fun together, like there'd be late nights, but those were fun nights. So that made it all, like, that era was really great. Like, we just produced such good stuff. And Rosie went into the position of doing the special section magazines. Trisha oversaw all the events and a lot of like illustration for the paper. And we produced kick-ass stuff. I mean, to this day, like, I look back on some of that and I'm amazed at what we did with Days.
I remember that as being a very beautiful era for Willamette Week.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. I mean, you know how it goes with like the weekly, like people forget pretty fast. But yeah, I always hoped that we like did something really special.
And I believe they actually have archived copies up on the site still.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, so you listeners, you can actually go and read some of these issues. The news is out of date, so don't pretend that, there's anything relevant in that. But
although I think that was Trump era part 1, so a lot of it might be more relevant than ever.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, with all the budget cuts in the media industry, maybe this would just reprint things from 2016 stories. And then everything's better. Oh God. But so you're rocking it in this role. Like, you have a great team.
Yeah.
And you end up doing that job for...
It was about a year and a half.
Yeah.
Year and a half-ish. Yeah. And in a lot of ways, it was a dream job. I mean, we were still having a lot of fun. The pressure was still crazy. The personalities were still there. But, for the lack of... Like, it was great. I mean, we just really had such a good time. And I think for the first time, like, I had been in news for a long time at that point, but I think covering those early days of, Trump's first term, it felt really important.
Yeah.
Like, it really, I think, not to get too in the weeds, but like, there's obviously a lot of differences between the 3 presidential terms we've lived through or are living through currently. And at that time, I think people were just so loud and so ready to like take to the streets to defend their point of view, whichever side that was.
Yeah.
And we were covering it. Like, we were out there. We had a team of photographers that were like in those streets taking those photos. And we actually won best photography for the year for alt weeklies, like across the whole country, just for some of our Trump protest coverage. And yeah, I mean, it felt really important. And I feel like that was the first time that I really connected with that side of things. Like, it always felt like what I did was worthwhile, but for the first time, it felt like this is really showing people this moment in history that we may never live through again.
Yeah.
And I had like such a responsibility to tell that story right and tell that story in a way that felt honest to both sides, and
compelling too.
And compelling.
Like make people actually read what's going on.
Yeah, and to care. I mean, one of the great things about Portland is that community really cares about itself. And so when you put something out there, it's pretty well understood that people are going to interact with it.
Yeah.
And so that was profound or it felt really like important and heavy to me. And I think through the rest of my time there, like really was one of the North Stars that we took to the news coverage specifically.
Yeah. I mean, it is an interesting inflection point for like, that was sort of like the transition point into the world that we are in now.
Yeah.
Where, like, I don't know, it does feel like we could maybe use a little bit more of the energy that we had in 2016, 17.
I know. I mean, to be honest, I mean, I live in Oakland now, and election night, like my partner and I were like ready for things to get crazy.
Yeah.
Like the building or the businesses were boarding up their windows.
Yeah, yeah.
Everybody was like really preparing for it, and nothing happened. Like not a peep, which I guess is good for, everyone's well-being. But I was surprised.
Yeah.
I feel like that's not the world we've been living in.
No, and I assume a lot of people did what I did, which was just eat an entire bag of tortilla chips and just sort of like, look at the floor. And that, that's not a very active like perspective on making, making one's voice do something useful.
Yeah.
It's sort of just making your stomach feel bad because you ate an entire bag of tortilla chips.
That was my night too. We did 2 bottles of wine.
Oh yeah. Oh
candy.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, pizza. Like just I'm gonna turn everything off and just succumb for a little bit.
Just open up the valve and just put the trash right in.
I'm gonna consume.
Juanita's, come right over here. Need you in here. Yes, there we go. Yum yum. This will take my pain away. It didn't. But yeah, so like at what point though, I mean, it sounds like this is a dream job.
Yeah.
At what point does Wired and San Francisco start calling your name?
So that's a funny story. I wasn't looking to leave. I actually had just signed a lease on a new apartment.
Oh.
Was ready to start a new chapter. I'd been living with my college roommate all those years and was just excited to do something new. And as I was picking up the keys to my new apartment, I got an email from then design director Ivy Lee Simmons, and it just basically said, like, would you be interested in working at Wired? It was like the most chill message ever. And for anyone who knew me back then, like, if you had asked, like, where would you want to work?
Yeah.
It was always Wired. Like, I think for a lot of designers, like, that legacy is just, like, so undeniable.
Well, like in so many ways, like it's Wired and Raygun that are the voices of like what print looked like in the 90s. And that legacy is still alive we're actually sitting right next
in the
to
archives.
Like, yeah. What an incredible selection. That you actually have multiple copies of each issue. That's not been true in every job that I've
well, they take that very serious here, which I really appreciate. But yeah, it was like such a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Like, I think I had to be like, I at least need to try.
Yeah.
And it took about a month through the interview process, which at the time felt like forever because I like was not unpacking my stuff. Like I just moved into the apartment, boxes.
Wow.
Like I was like, I don't want to unpack if I'm about to leave again.
And you're doing like 3 issues of Laminate Week as you're just waiting, being like, is this my last one? Or
and I wanted to give my team a heads up, but then in some ways it felt so improbable. Like there's no way I'm gonna get this. Like there's got to be somebody better out there that's like a better fit. And
had she seen your work on Laminate Week? Is that what like had drawn her in? Or
I had applied to Wired when I was looking for work, so years back, and like never heard anything. And then she had mentioned that they had just held on to my
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and that like the job I had applied for was like more of a junior role, and they didn't think that I was suited for that. And so I mean, I was shocked to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, there's the old joke about, putting your portfolio in the circular file, and
yeah,
I guess this is the first of those stories where it's like, oh no, actually somebody did
they
come
called
back to it.
Yeah,
Wow.
I mean, it was.
I guess it speaks to they're good at archiving.
Yeah. I mean, I have no idea truly what those conversations looked like, and I know like I've since talked to her about it a little bit, and it does seem like it's kind of a miracle. Not that I got hired, but she was, she like candidly was like, yeah, we talked to a few people that had been in magazines specifically for a long time, and like for all intents and purposes probably made more sense. And she said that there was something about the way that I saw news in the web and new ways of telling stories that she felt good about. And she actually didn't end up staying at Wired much longer after I had started. But yeah. And so at the time when I was interviewing, in my mind, I was like, this is taking forever.
Yeah.
Like a month. I don't know if I can like do this. And then now
your brain's on Sonic the Hedgehog mode.
Yeah, but I have to laugh because now if we hire somebody, it's like 3 months, 4 months. Like it's like such a long process. So in retrospect, it was very quick. But yeah, I mean, one day they were like, okay, like you've got the job and we want you to start in like 4 days.
Oh, shit.
It was, I mean, I ended up taking 2 weeks, but like even that was like, okay.
That's a big thing.
Yeah. Like, I have to leave Portland and like quit my job and drive to California.
And you've not lived in California since the tech boom.
Yeah.
So like finding an apartment's going to be a whole different experience now.
Yeah, it was. And like luckily Wired paid much more than like what Willamette Week was paying. So I was used to being thrifty, and it was like, it's like, oh, I can do this. Like this is reasonable. And I was lucky. My aunt and uncle lived past Walnut Creek, which is a suburb of San Francisco. This is my aunt who recently adopted Do Not Disturb focus mode. Just to bring it back.
For the listener, we had a long conversation about the incredible focus mode and the power move of that message.
Yeah.
Showing up in your messages app, being like, oh, I'll be moving along.
Those in focus mode are better than the rest of us. Is the takeaway. They're just better. So. But
please hold for Miss Walker. You called me. Why am I on hold? Huh?
So I got to move in with them for a bit, which was really nice just as a crash landing. But it was insane because I had essentially moved 4 times in 3 months.
Wow.
Like from my long-term apartment to a new apartment to my aunt and uncle's place to eventually the apartment.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, you learn real quick. Like the things that made the cut on move 1 did not make the cut on move 4.
Don't need that box. Don't need that box.
What was I thinking? I'm never going to wear this jacket.
That thing can't even go in a box. That's such a pain in the ass to haul upstairs.
Yeah, it was very enlightening each step of the way. But yeah, I got to stay there, take a month, figure out where I wanted to go. I ended up in Oakland. I'm still in that building today.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I guess you've kind of done your moves. So maybe
I love a long-term apartment situation. I mean, in Portland, the majority of my time was spent in one apartment except for the last month. In San Francisco, I was in the same apartment. Like, I am a very reliable renter. If any future landlords listen to this.
Tons of landlords listen to this show.
I
don't
imagine
know
the
why.
crossover is really tremendous.
I'm actively trying to scare them away, but they won't leave. I have a notice posted up. Please do not enter this podcast without notifying me 24 hours before, but they breeze right by it.
Yeah.
But so like you are settled in up here. Mm-hmm. Like you're taking on, is it the managing art director role when you were starting?
Yeah. When I first started, that was the role.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You sort of climbed the ladder over the 6 years that you're here.
I've clawed. I've really
I was wondering what those marks were in the wall over there. So, you're starting in 2018. Like, what kind of projects do they have you working on at the very beginning? Do you remember?
Oh, yeah. I mean, at the beginning, we were really just print. I mean, we had
really?
we had the website, but
Yeah.
it was like, how do we adapt what we did in print for the website? News was handled with just like, the photo team would pull Getty images, which we do today too, but I think we really consider it a lot more than we did back then. Some of those first issues, like, they're still fun to look back at. I mean, we did some wild stuff, and I feel like it was a lot of really conceptual things. Like, one of my first big projects was a fiction package, and we got to find this artist, or I found this artist, Tracy Lee, who I just worked with on something last month, and she did these really beautiful watercolor-esque animations that were very conceptual, really spacey. And I think in those early days, it was really like, wow, like this is the job, like abstract, not technical. In those days, it was like such a relief from doing the politics stuff.
Yeah.
And like,
Limit Week is such a serious paper compared to like getting to do something like that.
So abstract.
Yeah.
It was a dream. I mean, it was really like a nice change of pace, but something that I called back to earlier in the episode, like very shortly after I started, the New York Times posted this story that like Condé Nast was hundreds of millions of dollars in debt.
Oh, that's a fun surprise.
Yeah. And this was truly like maybe 2 weeks after I started, very, very soon after. So they did pretty extensive layoffs. It was a pretty grim setting. On my first day, an art director gave us 2 weeks. Another art director had quit.
Wow.
My creative director left shortly after. So I had been on the job for not very long, and like all of the senior staff had left. And at that moment, we were also working on the 25th anniversary issue.
Oh.
Which really required deep institutional knowledge that I did not have.
That's one that the higher ups are going to have some opinions on too, I bet.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, so
That's a tough thing to step into.
it was really fucking shitty. I mean, I'm not going to lie. It was no one's fault, but that was not my favorite era of my time here.
No.
Those were late nights, and like that was like grind time. Like that was just like, oh, we've got to put out this really insane issue. All with the likes of, I mean, luckily the photo side was managed by the director of photography, Anna, who's still here today. But like we were photographing Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, like all the big ones, and it was crazy. Like, it was absolutely crazy for that to be one of the first issues. And I mean, we had some junior designers on the team. Like, they were all obviously just like hammered by like what had just gone down. Like, nobody's in their best morale state.
No.
They're looking at me like, who is this like Little Miss Portland newspaper? Like, she doesn't know what she's doing. And I did not.
I believe Battelle put that out, right?
Yeah.
Little Miss Portland newspaper.
Yeah, exactly.
Not a big seller, but like,
yeah,
it reached the people that needed it.
Yeah, it was niche.
People who needed, information about sort of bakeries just for dogs, primarily.
Little Miss Portland really delivered on that.
Top 3 bakeries just for dogs. Number 1, Barks and Biscuits. Number 2, I don't
Wolf's
have any more.
Avenue.
Wolf's Avenue. Oh yeah. Oh, they were so good. It was a close contest, but yeah.
Really sad though about the owner being canceled.
That was kind of what did it. Yeah. But still, number 2, better than Barks and Charles Barkley. That one's just owned by Charles Barkley, and he didn't come up with a creative first one. And I think I already said Barks. So
and he hates dogs.
He hates dogs so much. Yeah. Charles Barkley, please don't sue me. I don't think you'll listen to this. This is not slander. It's parody. Okay, there we go. That's my disclaimer. Charles Barkley, please don't sue me. This is not the theme of season 6. But yeah, it's like, that's a hard environment to step into where there's just like, I mean, we were talking before about like, competitive environments, and that's inherently kind of a weird competitive environment.
Totally. Yeah.
You're coming in from outside. Nobody knows you yet. And,
and they didn't have any reason to trust me.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. I do the same thing. Like she, yeah.
You looked very shifty, and you were wearing a trench coat and constantly kind of looking at people over your shoulder.
Wait, and can I tell a funny story about my
Please.
early days? It was actually my first day at Wired. It was my birthday. And
Wow.
my friends at Willamette Week thought it would be really nice to send me a birthday cake. But like the cake arrived and the delivery guy's just like, oh, who's Alyssa? And I like raise my hand sheepishly and I'm like on the furthest corner of the office that like he has to walk across everybody.
You get a cake parade.
And it was like, he sat it down. It was a picture of, like, while I was at Willamette Week, I had done this photo shoot where I was riding a horse. And they had photoshopped my dog onto the horse. And then, like, had put a bunch of, like, inside jokes all around the cake. And then I asked the design team, like, oh, does anybody want any? And they're like, no.
Oh, no.
It was so cute. And then I was like, well, I can't, like, I have like an hour BART ride. I'm not going to take my cake. I like leave it. And people are like, who is this?
This is like a giant sheet cake.
Yeah, pretty much.
Of course.
Yeah.
Oh.
So humiliating. Like one person had a piece. It was so embarrassing.
That's rough.
It's like,
To have a cake like that at your desk
Yeah.
on your first day.
and then they're like, wait, it's your birthday?
Yeah.
Like, why are you here? Why would you start on your, like, just so many questions. I think everyone was like very skeptical of my well-being.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear.
What was her name?
I think Alana, maybe.
Oh my God. It was such a funny way to start that job. Just like,
Yeah.
and every year on my birthday, it's my Wired anniversary. My cake anniversary.
Do people eat your cake now?
Oh no, I don't go to work on my birthday now.
Hey,
Yeah.
there you go.
I've earned
there you
that
go.
right.
That's the move. That's the move. So, but like, you know, that's a real trial by fire, getting in the door. But you last, like, and like you start to get promoted up the chain, like 2019 senior art director, doing senior art director things. I don't really know what that means exactly, but sounds serious.
To be fair, I think they gave me that title because when I was the managing art director, I was doing everything because there was no, I mean, everyone else had quit. And so I think it was like a good show of faith of like, you deserve this.
Yeah.
Like, you've been doing this job, which was very nice.
I'm also looking at these managing art director, senior. They're a bit like academic job titles where it's like assistant and associate, and it's
Yeah.
like what? Huh? What's the difference there? These are managing could be in charge or senior could be in charge. What do you mean? But that makes sense. You're taking on a lot more responsibility. They're recognizing that, and then you get into design director, like after the pandemic starts. That's a pretty big title. Like,
yeah, that one was big. I feel like with that, like I really felt like, oh, we can start making some changes. We can evolve this. We can reinvent how we do everything, and we did. I mean, we moved through every aspect of the brand, and I feel like we slowly update things. Then once we come back around, we update the things we updated, and we're just always refreshing and thinking about, well, what can we do that's new now? What are we doing that we hate? What colors should we do more of? What should we retire? And
yeah,
that's a really fun part of the job for me, is like, it's never done. Like, you're always just thinking about the best way to tell these stories, the best way to share this information. And yeah, there's always so much to it.
Yeah, and I would think like with a property like Wired, you're thinking about, well, what is the next thing going to be in a like even more extreme way than, you know, you would at any other type of publication. Like,
yeah, it's like we really have to be in a league of our own.
Yeah.
It's not even like keeping up with trends. It's like we have to sit so far outside the trends that like we're batshit crazy and alone on our own island.
yeah, you have that time machine that you used to go to 2015 and buy the future year of 2015, I should say, from Back to the Future 2, and buy the sports almanac, and then you bring it back and you copy the styling of the sports almanac.
Yeah,
no?
Exactly. I've actually never seen Back to the Future.
What, really?
Yeah.
Can I tell you, my teaching partner and also past guest of this show, Kate Bingham-Nabert, has seen the movies Back to the Future 1, 2, and 3, I think probably north of 20 times in the past year.
In the past year?
She has a small child.
Okay.
So
say less. Yeah.
I know. Yeah. That kind of covers a lot of the bases.
Love the obsessive rewatch.
And I was definitely exactly that child as a kid. Like, those movies were just, oh, there's a weird looking car and it travels through time. Amazing.
I'm in.
I want everything to do with this. And yeah.
My version of that was The Princess and the Goblin. Like, it could just...
I've never even heard of that. What's that?
I have this vivid memory of this, like, production studio, I guess, but they, like, sold these movies at, like, Kmart.
Oh, sure.
Or, like, Rite Aid. Like, it was like a drugstore movie.
A checkout DVD, VHS
but there was, like, a whole... It was like the Miyazaki of Rite Aid, essentially. Princess and the Goblin, look it up. It's and there were others, but that one, like, I watched like every day.
Yeah,
like,
go to your chain art house theater, presumably, to watch Princess and the Goblin. I'm trying to see if there's any. Yeah, Princess and the Goblin, a 1991 animated fantasy film based on an 1872 novel. What the hell? Wow.
Yeah, that actually checks out. It's pretty dark.
Yeah, it may not be American. Also, it may be like a Czech thing or something. That's wild. Yeah. Princess and the
good.
Goblin.
It's good.
Yeah. Go check out Princess and the Goblin. Audience.
Shout out Princess and the Goblin.
It's got everything. It's got a princess. It's got a goblin. It's New York's hottest club. Yeah, that's incredible. So your most recent title change came just last year. You're now creative director here.
I am, yes.
Sort of the top of the heap, the big dog.
It's true.
Yeah.
For better or worse. No, for better.
Yeah, like, what is the transition to, like, really running things completely been like?
It was actually pretty big. We had, prior to my taking over, a UK team, and then we had the team in the US. And back when I started, like, everyone was in San Francisco. Like, that was our home base.
Yeah.
And through the years, I think it's just made sense that people have sort of trickled out to where the stories are. So our New York office has grown exponentially over the years. We do have much more folks in London, and then people sort of scattered around in various states. But so when I started here, like, it was really a lot of folks in an office sitting around.
I'm going to pause because I just turned around and I realized I didn't plug in my laptop. So it's at battery warning levels. Thank God.
High stakes. We love
Listener
that.
drama. There we go. We did.
You got to go faster. Your time is of the essence.
Sonic the Hedgehog. Dear God, how did I forget that step?
It was wrangling all the other pieces.
I guess so. It's a highly professional podcast. Don't let anybody tell you different. Thank God. 3%.
Say, oh my gosh, you were in the 3% realm?
I was at the 3% realm. I truly thought I was going to be 007ing it. It would be like, count down to 1, and then it's just, wow.
Oof.
Woo! See, new season. I'm bringing the drama. I'm bringing the excitement. Like, you tell your friends, tell your dogs, tell everybody.
Tell Charles Barkley.
Tell Charles Barkley, but not to sue me specifically. It was a joke. Please, Charles, please. Anyway. Back to this has been a big transition. Then. Yes.
So we've essentially brought all these offices together rather than have a UK team and a US team. We have like one English language team. We're working closely with Wired Japan, Wired Mexico, Wired Italy, like really doing a lot of what we hadn't in the past. And with that comes a lot of uncharted territory, a lot of like new processes to build, a lot of working through different time zones and trying to find when. I mean, there's like an hour where we can have our meetings. And like, luckily, everyone has been very flexible. And, the US gets up at 8:30 to do it. The UK stays on till 5:30. And like, we have that 1 hour where like everybody's on.
I had not really thought about that aspect of having like a global team like that. But you'd have to.
You'd have to. And I mean, our management is across all the different locations. I mean, one of our, leaders essentially is in London, and then there's a good handful of us in San Francisco and our global editorial directors in New York. And it sounds like it shouldn't work and that it would be too chaotic, but I feel like we're really well oiled at this point. I mean, I don't know, we just kind of do it. And like everyone knows when things happen. You sort of know when certain meetings need to happen. And
you got the right team for it.
We have the right team for it. Yeah. And in the London office, it's like there's a lot of trust. Like, I think if you didn't, then it wouldn't work. But it's like those are incredible designers who haven't had, a creative director before. And so they're used to they're used to making decisions. They're used to working quickly. And so that was easy to come in and like know those were the people that were on the team. And we had a relationship before, but just didn't work as closely as we do now. And so, I mean, it's been really different. And I think when I look back at this time last year, like there's not a lot that's the same. And I think in some ways, like that's really exciting. Yeah. Like I've been here for a while now, and I think I continue to stay inspired because every year it's kind of a different place. Yeah.
It's an interesting like canvas to have to experiment on because like the tech world is inherently always changing. And, I certainly a lot of changes recently, but like, how you cover all of that and how you are designing has to be keeping pace. And like,
and I think
that's a lot of balls in the air to sort of juggle.
Totally. And I mean, there was an era where tech was a novelty, but now it's like tech news is just news. I mean, that's such a blanket term. And so we get to be really particular with what we cover and what our slice of that is. And last year, with the lead up at the election, we launched a politics vertical and have been telling very wired versions of those stories, which I think is tremendously impactful, and I think it's a good moment for Wired to do that. But then we also cover a lot of cybersecurity and self-driving cars. And, it's not all just like Google and Facebook and Apple. And I think that's really refreshing because it's like a really like healthy mix of topics that are really woven into what we talk about on the day-to-day.
Yeah, and a reminder of just like how complex covering a subject as broad as technology really is.
Yeah.
Like, technology is all over the place in everything. It's me hastily trying to plug in my laptop.
With seconds to spare.
Just, you didn't see me, listeners, but I wiped, just the perfect bead of sweat off my forehead. Wow. I did it.
The special effects in here are incredible.
Like, production value's never been higher, listeners. And that's why you should definitely, again, listen and tell your friends and tell Charles Barkley, but again, not to sue me. But yeah, like it's a really interesting role to be in and a really interesting time to be in it.
Yeah. And we still have the magazine. We still have like Wired on newsstands, but we also have a really robust TikTok presence now. We have a YouTube channel that has over 10 million subscribers. We have, all these avenues where we tell Wired stories. And I love that in 2025, print is still an avenue to reach people. But I also think it's great that it's really not the main thing. It's not our only avenue. It's not like we are just Wired magazine. It's like we're this Wired global experience where, we really aim to like create a community of like-minded people who are interested in technology, but also give a shit about what's going on in the world. And it's refreshing. It feels like a really unique place.
We're sitting in an environment that is like also an extension of that. Like Wired's podcasting is done from right here.
It's true.
That's a wild thing to think. Like, there are like essentially non-visual components of this system too that all have to play into the whole. Not that there's podcast art and stuff.
Yeah.
I'd
love to go to a podcast for the art.
Well, I hope listeners are enjoying the brand new show art that I spent a lot of time, putting in, and I'm sure no one will pay attention to. But still, that's it's a really interesting. I don't know. It's such a cool job to be in.
I think so.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful to do things like this because how rarely do you get to like walk down memory lane and think about all the bad decisions you made that got you here.
Well, in my case, it's sort of an ongoing trauma that, just inflict on myself.
Are you okay?
God, no. Are you kidding? Look at me. No. Thank you so much, Alyssa, for being here. What an absolute treat it's been.
Thank you. Thank you, really. Like, this has been so fun, so awesome.
You've been so generous with your time and so generous with this, space. Thank you. If people want to find more about, your work, I can think of a place that maybe they would go to see it, but do you have anywhere specific you'd want to direct people?
Oh, I mean, now is probably a great time for Instagram to not be the best place to find me, but
I think that's going to be also an ongoing trauma of this season.
Alas. I try to share a lot of the work that I do with illustrators and designers and, our larger team at my Instagram, which is _Alyssa Walker. My portfolio site, which is tragically out of date, is alyssawalker.me. Maybe saying this here will inspire me to throw on some recent projects.
Hey.
But really, the best thing you could do is subscribe to Wired. I mean,
yeah.
I think and if not Wired, subscribe to some publication that means a lot to you. One thing I do really want to stress is that being a media organization in 2025 is not easy.
No.
And it is surely just going to get harder. And the best thing that you can do to make sure that these stories get told is to subscribe to publications telling those stories. And we try to make it really worth your while. We're putting out a lot of really cool subscriber-only stuff. The team's killing it across the board. And so, subscribe to something. I hope it's Wired.
Yes, I and especially given how significant tech is in politics right at this very moment, I think there has never been maybe a better time to be subscribed to Wired because y'all are covering exactly that intersection. And that's pretty important. So that's your homework, listeners. Go complete it and have it on my desk by Monday. I don't know. I don't have a desk. Well, thank you, Alyssa.
Thank you so much.
Also, hey, thank you to Wired for actually letting us use this incredible studio space. I also wanted to shout out, like you mentioned, a podcast producer that was kind of helping to coordinate.
Oh, yeah. Boone.
Boone. Thank you to Boone for helping to set up this space for us. I'm so lucky we got it working and that I didn't, trip over my shoelaces at the 11th hour by having my computer completely die during the recording. Thank you, Boone. Also, hey, one more thank you out there to you. That's right, you, the one who's listening to this right now. I don't know why I'm whispering, but thank you. If this is your first episode and you're eager to hear more, be sure to subscribe in whatever, podcast player you use, or visit us on the web at dididothat.design. You can explore our full catalog there and find some good images that go along with each and every episode. Also, if you got a moment, please rate, review, and share this show. Written ratings on Apple Podcasts are especially helpful. Seriously, even if you don't use Apple Podcasts, and telling a friend is an even bigger thing that you can do for me personally. With social media sinking into the sea as we try to scurry off it like rats, it's never been more important to spread the silly word by word of mouth. This has been Did I Do That? I'm Sean Schumacher, and as we always say, at the close of every episode,
did I do that?
That's it. Okay, bye! I promised you it was a dumb show, and I feel like I've delivered on that.
That was great. That was really sensational.
There we go. Focus mode. We're focusing.
I feel like focus mode, the first time I saw it, my aunt had put her phone on focus mode.
Oh, yeah, the thing where it tells you.
Yeah, this person is not caring about you right now.
This person does not want to hear from you.
Yeah. I felt like it was the coolest thing ever. It was like, wow, she does not give a fuck.
Yeah, this is like you call and you get the secretary and the secretary's like, oh no, she's not available. Yeah. But you can clearly hear her whispering like,
that's exactly the energy.
I don't want to talk to Alyssa right now. Yeah. I owe her like $50.
I'm focusing. I'm sorry. I can't. I wish, yeah.
Sorry, I'm so busy with my Focus right now. My Ford Focus, the engine's really fucked up. It's such a bad car.
That's the mode I'm in.
Yeah.
Please respect.
2025 power moves, focus mode all the time. Yeah. The fact that they call it focus mode too, instead of just do not disturb like they used to, it really like, it puts an importance on it that is so...
Biggest rebrand, really.
I'm focusing on myself right now.
This is me being better than you.
I'm not just putting a little hanger on my, hotel room door asking that no one come change the sheets.
I'm taking the doorknob off.
Yeah. I'm losing my hotel deposit because I don't want to talk right now. Oh. This is good. This is the kind of nonsense that the show is. Perfect.